Hi, I'm Allie with Potomac Beads. Join me in getting in that Christmas spirit by creating your own tree. We can make this as a pendant or as a pin. You can put one on the back. If you need any supplies, check out the links below the video in the description to shop with us online. Let's get started in trimming our tree. So this Christmas tree is based on right angle weave, and I have a stop bead on some .006 wildfire beading thread in the green color. And on that bead, I have that stop bead, and I've put 8 beads onto my needle. When I put those 8 beads onto the needle, I'm going to then go back through the first 6 of those beads. We're doing right angle weave, but we are doing it as a 2-drop or 2 beads per side of our right angle weave. Once you have that there, put that down next to your stop bead, and you're going to think about these 8 beads as being a top of a box, a bottom of a box, the left side and the right side. We're going to build a couple more boxes onto the right side. This time we're going to add 6 beads onto our needle. We already have the right side of the box before it, which is going to actually become our left side of our next box. After you have those 6 beads on, I'm going to sew back down through those last 2 beads that my thread are coming out of, so my needle is exiting where the thread exited prior. That creates my next little box for my base of my Christmas tree. Sew through the 2 bottom beads of your box, and then up through the 2 beads on the right hand side of your box, which is going to become the left of the next box. 6 more beads go on, and these six beads are going to be, the color I'm using is that matte silver lined dark emerald. It's a Miyuki Seed Bead. Go back up through those 2 beads that the thread's coming out of after adding on your 6. And then I flipped it in my hand so that I can hold it more comfortably. Sew through what would be the top 2. And then also those 2 on the right hand side. Now you can make your Christmas tree however big or however small you want to. Keep in mind however many rows of right angle weave is going to dictate how big your tree is actually going to be. I'm going to continue on till I have 7 rows to establish my tree base, or the biggest part of the tree where it is at the bottom. Once you have the base line of your tree as wide as you want it, and in my case again I did 7, I'm turning it so the stop bead is facing up and my thread is coming out of the top. We're going to be doing right angle weave again and building blocks up to make our tree smaller. So it doesn't look super organic and there's lots of open holes in it. What we're going to do is, as we step up or add our next row onto our right angle weave, I want you to sew through the top 2 beads on the last box, as well as bead number 1 in the second box, and that separating out basically those top 2 beads. Bring your thread and needle out. And now we're going to do right angle weave again. We're going to add in here our 6 beads to do our next row. And instead of just picking up 2 beads from one right angle unit, we're going to pick up 1 of the second beads from the unit before and the first bead from the next unit, and sew back through those 2 beads, basically establishing a new box that is off center from the last. Go up through the first 2 beads on that left hand side of the box that we just created, and we're going to do our next portion of our right angle weave. So again, we're going to add 1 and 2 sides, both of which are 2 beads. We now have the right side of our next right angle unit, and these 2 beads here at the bottom, the second bead of the right angle unit top from the one below, and the first bead from the right angle unit next to it. So I have 4 beads on. I'm going to sew back towards the first unit through that first bead on the next right angle unit, which would be the 4th one over there. And then again through the empty one that's sitting there from that second unit in from the left, and creating my next little right angle weave there. So now if you know right angle weave, which is really helpful for the tree, you're going to go back up through the 2 beads on the right hand side of the box you just created, through the 2 beads at the top. And you can see when I'm doing right angle weave, especially multiple rows, I tend to change how I'm holding the piece. Down through the 2 beads that you established as the left-hand side of that last box that you just made. And now through bead number 2 from the row below it, and bead number 1 from the ceiling or the top of the right angle weave beside. What this is doing is this is creating a spacing which is going to make the tree look a little bit more organic and also make it smaller as we go up, creating that nice long triangle. After you have 4 beads on your thread and needle, go back through the 2 beads on the right angle unit before that were the left hand side, now are going to become the right to create my box. So through those 2 bottom beads there that you have, creating the bottom of this box you just made, up through the 2 beads on the left hand side of the box, and 4 more beads get added. It's a little bit tricky to add the second layer when you're doing multiple rows of right angle weave. Once you get it though, it's cake and it's easy. So I'm kind of turning to the side here. I'm going to sew back through bead number 1 from the next right angle block and bead number 2 from the one that I'm on top of. So again, then up through those 2 what were left hand side beads and now are right. 2 at the top. And this is just regular right angle weave. The only thing that we're doing differently is that we're separating the 2 beads from the unit below. Now again, to get started, into bead number 2 and bead number 1 of the next right angle weave. So you're going to finish this off, and then we're doing the same thing as we get to rows 3 and progressing on to make that nice tree triangle shape. When you get to the end of that second row, I'm going to flip it in my hand, but you should have one little bead hanging out kind of right next to the bead stopper there. That's the extra bead at the top of the last right angle unit. I'm going to take my piece and just flip it in my hand, and I'm actually going to unsew through that bead that I came out of. I want my thread and needle coming out between the first, or those top 2 beads on that last right angle row. Anytime you're doing another row of right angle weave, you've got to add 3 sides, so I'm adding 6 beads total. And then I'm sewing back into the second bead from the next right angle unit and that first bead that my thread is coming out of. That establishes again a shrinkage and moving the tree smaller into that top point of a triangle. Go ahead and sew back through your right angle weave. And again, it's easy if you can kind of flip when you're working with it. Once you're down through that side there, pick up bead number 2 from the right angle weave below it and bead number 1 from the right angle box beside. 4 beads go on now, going down through what was the left and is now the right of the next box. Down through those 2 beads, which joined basically 2 boxes from the bottom, up through the 2 on the right hand side of my new box. So go ahead and create this, and you're going to continue downgrading as your tree gets smaller and smaller by again grabbing on between those 2 beads. Every row you should kind of have 1 bead at the end of each row from the previous row of box. So here's my box where I have 6. That little bead is going to hang out there on the corner of box 6 and on the corner of box 1, just like it did on 1 and 7 on the base row. Again, we're going to go from 6 to 5 to 4 to 3, etc., going up and creating our triangular shape. When you get to the top of the tree and you have all of your pieces on, I'm going through the top 2 beads there and coming out, and I have a 6mm crystal on my thread. I also have a wire guard here. If you are not doing it as a pendant and want to do it as a pin, go ahead and just put a seed bead at the top and then come back down through. I'm putting the wire guard on, going through one side of that wire guard, down through the other side of the wire guard, and back through in the same direction that 6mm bead. Take your thread and needle then through those 2 seed beads from the opposite end. So my thread was coming out the left hand side. I'm now going into the right hand side. What that's going to do is get that 6mm bead. You can do a little star bead. You can do a little crystal or a Monty. It's going to get that to sit right in the middle. I'm going back up through here, going in then, through that wire guard, down through the wire guard on the other side, and back down through the crystal. Again, because I started out on the left-hand side, I'm going to make sure my thread sits in there, and then go into the right-hand side so that sits in the middle. Now, if you want to, there's lots of videos that I have, Art Deco earrings, Gatsby bracelet, that you can go in and actually decorate the tree. I like the tree looking open a little bit. What we're gonna do now is add lights and trim our tree. This is a thing that you can do. There's no wrong or right way to do it. Have fun going back and forth, adding in your glows and your lights. And I'm using some silver lined colors. We have some silver lined mixes that you can go in to get that nice vintage look of the lights on the tree. So below your little angel here, what you're going to do, or your star, is you are going to string on your Christmas lights. Just like a regular tree, there's no right or wrong way to do this. I'm coming out of the top 2 beads after adding on that bead, and I'm using my green beads to separate out my lights. You can do it nice and bright if you want to. I want it to have kind of those lights pop. I have one on my silver lined flame red, then another one of my tree color, a blue, silver lined sapphire, tree color, and my silver lined orange. I'm going to jump down to row 2 of my beads. So here is, again, row 1 of my 1 single right angle weave. Here's row 2. And I'm going to sew down through the 2 beads that are on the right hand side. Remember, you're going to have one kind of sticking up there that stayed on there. You're just sewing down through those 2 beads. That's going to create just a little bit of that kind of loopy desired effect that I want of trimming the tree. From here, I'm just going to zigzag down from row to row, adding in, leaving off kind of where I started. We'll do a yellow light, and then I'll do a teal, putting those greens in between. Back up then maybe to my red, orange. Have fun with it. Don't think it too hard. Use up some seed beads if you want. And again, you don't need to do this portion. You can go in and out of the beads at any way and any angle. And if you want them to hang and not hang too separated, again, you can kind of switch back and forth. But I'm going to snake over then to the other side and sew down through my 2 seed beads on this side here on row number 3. That'll snake my lights across my tree and have them almost 3D that they're sitting on top. Again, creating those lights then along this second row here. I'll go in and kind of systematically place in colors and get those lights trimmed on my tree back and forth. After you're done creating your lights on your tree and kind of weaving back and forth, if you want to, you can go back and do even more. Again, if you want to put some seed beads along the back there of the tree, you can also do that, or use crystals. Really have fun, again, decorating the tree in your own style. The last thing we need to do is make a trunk for our tree. So I have here a dark bronze matte metallic Delica bead. Any brown will do. You don't have to use Delicas. I had them handy, so I was going to use them. And I'm coming off the bottom row here, and I have in here my row of 2 right along the base. What I'm going to do right along the base here is add just one of my Delicas in, so it looks like kind of the bottom of the tree that I'm starting to see the branches through. Sew through the next 2 beads. Again, another 11-0 goes on through the next 2 beads. Another 11-0 goes on through the next 2 beads, which happens to be my 4th set of my right angle weave here at the base. Right there along the base, then I'm going to pick up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do one more row of my right angle weave, so I'm going back through those 2 green beads that my thread is coming out of. I'm going to go back through the first 2 beads, which are the right side of the trunk. Go back through the 2 beads, which are at the bottom. Add one more row of the right angle weave, adding in 6 beads. So back through the 2 your thread are coming out of. And that gets the second little base there of our tree trunk. Going around here, I'm going to go back through the first 2 after I went through that top, through the bottom 2, through the side 2, because I'm working my way back up toward the top, and back through this right angle weave. Give a nice tight yank so that way it ends up being a little bit more squared. Go back up through those 2 beads there on the left hand side of the first row of the right angle weave on the trunk. And if you want to, you could also do ladder stitch here, going back through those 2 green beads, working towards my stop bead. Go in and add a green or a brown, sew through the next 2 green beads along the baseline of the tree, brown bead through the next 2 beads, 1 more brown bead through the next 2, and guess what? We are back at the start at that right angle weave. So up through those 2 beads that the thread is coming out of, take off my stop bead here, add a little extra Christmas light on there if you want, and I'm literally just going to sew these 2 threads together with a nice tight stitch. If you are using a pin, I would suggest getting some either lacy stiff stuff or some brown ultra suede or brown art leather. You can glue this onto it or do the pin backing and then glue onto that. Once you're at the end here, just take your thread burner, burn down those extra threads. And you won't see those extra threads because it's green on green. If you want to, you could have taken your thread and needle and backtracked through a little bit. Burn off those thread ends, and now you have your fun little Christmas tree pendant or ornament. Thanks again so much for hanging out with me and making this Christmas tree pin, ornament, pendant, whatever you want to make it be. Remember, you can make it as big and as small, change up the seed bead sizes, change up the counts of the right angle weave, but doing that, connecting from the 1 right angle weave unit below to the next one while creating another layer on top, kind of like that brick wall building blocks, really helps create that nice triangle shape. Remember, if you need any materials, check out the links below me to shop with us online at PotomacBeads.com as well as PotomacBeads.eu. Remember to hit that little bell, that side there, to subscribe to receive regular updates from us here at Potomac Beads. Also, happy holidays, Merry Christmas to everyone, and enjoy your nice Christmas tree pendant.